What's up, everybody? John Hoover from the franchise. We just watched Kansas State take down number 5 ranked Oklahoma 48-41 here at Bill Snyder Family Stadium in Manhattan, Kansas. I'm not going to say unbelievable because we've seen Oklahoma go into games before. They were a 23-point favorite in this thing, 23.5. We've seen them be favored by 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, even 30 points a few years ago against Iowa State. And we've seen them cough it up. We've seen them not put forth their best foot. Well, this thing was very, very emblematic of those games, those double-digit favorites, those huge advantages that Oklahoma would have over a team. They didn't show up today. They didn't play hard. They didn't play as a team. They left a lot out there on the field. And Kansas State, give all credit to Kansas State because Kansas State took the fight to Oklahoma. That's not something that I thought we would see out of the 2019 Sooners, especially considering the defensive changes that we've seen from Oklahoma, the attitude shift and the mental health of this defense was so much better than it has been in recent years. This, today, October 26, 2019, looked a lot like the 2018 and the 2017 defense. When things started going sideways for the Sooners, they kind of collapsed and they kind of started feeling sorry for themselves and they kind of started moping around. And Lincoln Riley said in the postgame that's the element that he was most disappointed with was that when things did get going badly, guys didn't pick each other up. They didn't pick themselves up. It just got worse and worse and worse. The third quarter and early fourth quarter were an abject disaster for the Sooners. Again, 23.5-point favorite. I'll go over some notes here with you. This ends OU's 22-game road winning streak. Going back to 2014 when they lost at TCU, they had not lost a road game since then. That was the second longest road winning streak in history, in all of major college football history. The 1950s team, Bud Wilkinson's teams, they won 25 in a row during that 47-game winning streak. This team had won 22 and had an outside opportunity to tie that streak this season, but it was not to be. As, like I said, Kansas State fell behind 10-0, and after that, they just absolutely took the fight. They outscored the Sooners 48-13 over the next 41 minutes after falling behind 10-0. That was something that was impressive to see Chris Kleiman, the first-year coach, and the fight that he's instilled in these guys. These are still Bill Snyder's players out here, and yet Chris Kleiman has instilled a new, I don't know what it is, a new quality in this team that was very impressive to watch. The last loss, as I said, was 2014 at TCU. The last time they lost to Kansas State here in Manhattan, 1996, pre-Bob Stoops, which is just amazing to me. OU, as I said, got out to a 10-0 lead, and I asked Lincoln Riley, and I asked after the game Alex Grinch if there was a possibility that 10-0 lead, where they go down and they kick a field goal, then they force a 3-and-out, then they go down and score an easy touchdown, if that gave Oklahoma some false confidence. Lincoln Riley said he didn't feel it happening on the sideline, he didn't feel that it was happening during the game, but looking back on it, he said it very well may have been the case. Guys were falsely confident over a 10-0 lead. You think about it, they've beaten a lot of teams this year. Oklahoma has 7-0. They started this season. They've beaten a lot of teams early in the game. They get out to an early lead, and then they just kind of coast down the stretch. Well, they got out to an early lead here. There was no coasting against Kansas State. Kansas State, if you think about it, this was Oklahoma's first true hostile road environment contest. They didn't get tested out at UCLA. Are you kidding me? The 25,000 fans in the Rose Bowl, you see it from UCLA, that was a joke. The next road game at Kansas. The game at Texas, obviously, the Red River rivalry, was a little bit of a road game, and they had fans going against them, but they also had their own fans, and it's a rivalry game. You go on the road, and you're in a hotel, and the other team doesn't like you, and the fans are booing you, and then you come out here, this place, with 50,000 crazy Kansas State fans. Wildcats started having a little success. It started going against them, and as Lincoln Riley said, that was something that this team hadn't been tested yet. So he was a little bit surprised, I think, overall that the first real road test for this team, they failed miserably. So they fell behind 48-23 in the third quarter. Kansas State trailed most of the first half, but it was a crazy play, a double pass, throw out to Nick Bask when Nick Bask was looking deep. He can't throw it deep, so he throws it across the middle, goes off Charleston Rambo's hands. It's intercepted. K-State scores right before halftime, a touchdown. That really pushed a lot of momentum in Kansas State's favor. Oklahoma got a walk-off halftime field goal, but still, K-State had all the momentum after that. They had the belief, they had the lead, first of all, and they had the belief that they could win the football game. I don't think there's any question. The third quarter was a disaster. Oklahoma was outscored 17-0. They stretched the lead to 48-23 early in the fourth quarter, and after that, you know, it took Oklahoma with a crazy, at the end of the game, 18-point rally, 18 unanswered points, started off by that CeeDee Lamb little hitch pass. He turns it upfield, breaks some tackles, spins through some guys. Pretty soon he's got a 70-yard touchdown. That injected some life into the Sooners. And furthermore, Lincoln Riley said he thought being down like that, you know, guys were tight, guys were not poised in tight situations once it got going bad. But being down by a lot, he said, enabled them to play a lot freer. And, you know, that's not what you want. You don't want to have to be down by, you know, 25 points in the fourth quarter to be able to get going. So he was disappointed in that as well. The offense was bad, the defense was bad, and the special teams was just as bad for that stretch when Kansas State was pulling away. It ended up being an onside kick in the final minute and 49 seconds. The Sooners recovered the football, ultimately. It was their ball, but they ruled that Trajan Bridges, the ball had hit him, even though he was being blocked into the ball, or I'm sorry, even though he was being contacted before the 10 yards, the official, Reggie Smith, and his crew ruled, and they quoted the rule book on this, they ruled that the touching of the ball was not forced. There was contact from the K-State kick return team into Bridges before the 10 yards in an illegal, which a lot of people, a lot of Sooner fans for sure think is the, you know, that would be grounds for the illegal touch. That's why he was forced into the football before it reached 10 yards. That's not what they ruled. They made a judgment call that the contact from the K-State player into the OU player is not the factor that forced him to touch the football before it reached 10 yards. So ultimately, Kansas State gets the football back. They kneel on it. They get the big victory. 23.5-point underdog, K-State was. Go over some numbers with you real quick. Kansas State had 426 yards of offense. The previous high that Oklahoma's defense had allowed this season was 408 against Houston. So, and they were in the 300s and 200s the rest of the time. So that was, the Houston game was actually the outlier. Kansas State comes out here today, controls it for 36 minutes, I think. Pull away because they're able to control the football. They're able to control the tempo. They're able to stay on the field. And the thing that got Alex Grinch, I think, the most bent out of shape probably through the game was Kansas State converting 3rd and 11, 3rd and 19, 2nd and 17 into a first down, 3rd and 15 into a first down. They had a 4th and 6, and they converted that. And they scored touchdowns and field goals after each one of those. So that was the thing, I think, that really decided this game. If Oklahoma's defense could have gotten off the field in those situations, that's something that Oklahoma probably would have been able to rally at the end and might have won the football game. A couple of statistics. Jalen Hurts, 19 of 26, 395 yards, and a passing touchdown. He was sacked twice, and he was under pressure a lot. That Kansas State defensive front, those guys were after him. Wyatt Hubert, Reggie Walker, those guys were after him throughout the day. Trey Deshawn was really good up front, and Jalen Hurts was running for his life a lot of the times. He ended up, like I said, 19 carries for Jalen Hurts, 96 yards. Now, he did score 3 touchdowns, but listen to these statistics here. This is, to me, the key to the game. Oklahoma didn't establish the running game. I don't know if it's the new offensive line. I don't know if Lincoln Riley figured that those guys couldn't block the K-State front, but 3 carries for 9 yards for Trey Sermon and 3 carries for 3 carries for 2 yards for Kennedy Brooks. Those guys combined for 2,003 rushing yards last season and 25 rushing touchdowns. They end up today with a combined 6 carries for 11 yards against Kansas State. That's why Oklahoma lost the football game. They either couldn't establish the run, didn't try to establish the run, or didn't want to establish the run, maybe didn't think they could establish the run. You got 2,000-yard running backs back there, and you're not giving them the football? It's the Jalen Hurts show. 19 carries for 96 yards. Listen, it's a great game, 5 yards a carry. Oklahoma came into this thing averaging 7.4 yards per rush today, 3.9. You tell me what won the football game. It was Kansas State staying on the football field on 3rd down and Oklahoma inability to run the football. The K-State offensive line, 5 seniors up front. They also have a senior tight end. Those guys protected Skylar Thompson. They paved the way for James Gilbert in the running game. James Gilbert, 105 yards and a touchdown. And listen to this, Skylar Thompson, And his quarterback run game, 13 carries for 39 yards, right? Only 3 yards a carry. That includes sacks. Scored 4 touchdowns. Anytime they got near the goal line, near the end zone, it was the Skylar Thompson show. So forget about the Jalen Hurts show. The Heisman contender today looked like he was wearing number 10 in purple. That was a remarkably impressive performance by Skylar Thompson. I think Grinch and Riley were both disappointed and concerned that Kansas State took the fight to Oklahoma, especially on the defense. Grinch was really not happy about the fact that Kansas State was the more aggressive team, was the team that really came out and punched Oklahoma in the mouth, figuratively speaking. There were missed tackles for pretty much the first time all season, more than there have been all season long, I think. Maybe even more than there have been all season combined, if you think about it. We don't have the final numbers, of course, and Oklahoma's not going to give us those. But just watching it with my eyeballs, it looked like Oklahoma missed more tackles today than they had in their previous 7 games combined. There were soft zone coverages. Instead of playing that tight man-to-man coverage that they had been, Oklahoma, Alex Grinch sat back in a zone, in some mixed zone coverages, and those things were open. Skylar Thompson threw the ball with confidence today, and Oklahoma's defense, which at one point, Delaren Turner-Yell goes out with an injury, and Parnell Motley ends up getting ejected because of he's blocked into the end zone, or blocked into the sideline. He's kicking at his guy, kicking up at him, and the refs determined that he was kicking and was, tossed out of the game. 2 starting defensive backs for Oklahoma go down. I don't think that made a difference, sure, but I don't think that was ultimately what won this game for Kansas State. Kansas State, they had open receivers, they were aggressive, and Skylar Thompson was confident throwing the football. He was making some throws. My first thought today on one of the throws he made down near the end zone down here, looked like Dan Marino. I mean, he stepped back 1, 2, 3, threw a tight spiral on time, and it was caught where only his receiver could catch it. I'm thinking, geez, where's that guy been all year? And frankly, Oklahoma, like I said, when they got near the goal line, Sooner defense had no answers for the quarterback run game. Kansas State just walked into the end zone on, I want to say, 5 of their 6 rushing touchdowns. It was pretty bad. And on the good side, if you want something to smile about, Gabe Burkich was fantastic. He had a 50-yard field goal. He was 4 for 4 on the day, and his onside kick was perfect, except for it hit a guy before it went 10 yards. But other than that, it was perfect. Oklahoma had a chance to grab this game at the end. They probably didn't deserve to win. And when Lincoln Riley was asked after the game about their national championship possibilities, this program, you don't want to talk about a national championship after a performance like that, but this program is built on national championships. Well, Lincoln Riley said, hey, we've lost a single game in the past 2 years and we made the playoff in both times. So he's right about that, but somehow, I don't know, this loss right here today feels a little different. One more thing before it gets a little too dark. The sun's starting to go down here in the Flint Hills of northern Kansas. The Big 12 Conference is wide open. TCU beats Texas. You got Oklahoma State going on the road and winning at Iowa State. This conference is really wonky right now, and Oklahoma did not do its part to get the conference into the college football playoff, or maybe even potentially win its first national championship in a long time. There's more football to play. Sooners are open next week before they take on Iowa State in Norman. Thanks for watching. See you guys.